Something that I've put a lot of attention on our show is the Joe Rogan effect. And a lot of people are talking about this, where you have conversations that come up there. And Rogan's kind of, I'm just chit-chatting with people persona. And the way that he handles the podcast allows for people who spew a lot of garbage to just befriend him. They help on the podcast. He thinks they're just chatting, or he doesn't really care that the stuff is being said. And then to this, one of the largest podcast audiences, wild misinformation that's really dangerous gets spread. It's not to say he doesn't have the right to bring them on, that they don't have the right to say the things they're saying, but just that in this battle of ideas we're in, and an environment where a lot of people are now getting their news, even when Rogan says they shouldn't, from places like Rogan, and it's not just his podcast, others as well, you end up really seeing harmful ideas spread very quickly with very little pushback. And that phenomenon was called out. A part of it is the abandonment, as I'm throwing my Sharpie for some reason, abandonment of the valuing of expertise, and how there's this rejection of all consensuses among the experts, right? So there's a popularity just saying that anything the experts say, we knee-jerk stand against. That's become really popular. And all that's to say that a guy named Douglas Murray, who I'm not familiar with, but is being described as a British conservative, and even in the parts I heard, there's some parts I disagree with, stuff he said, but he does call out Joe Rogan on Joe Rogan's podcast to Joe Rogan, the fact that he's really, this is my language, but causing something harmful. So I want to show that to you. There's important context, though. One of the people who's going to be referenced is a guy who goes around playing historian called Daryl Cooper. We talked about him before. Tucker Carlson brought him on. One of the notable parts of it that we talked about was the Nazi apologia, essentially, the rewriting of World War II to portray Hitler, the Nazis in a more favorable light. And Tucker Carlson describes him, because this is going to come back up, as Daryl Cooper may be the best and most honest popular historian in the United States. His latest project is the most formidable of all, trying to understand World War II. We got to understand it. We don't understand it. There's something missing. Like, maybe it's not at all what I said that it was, or or what you think that it is. So here's just some disturbing moments from this podcast, because to get to the Douglas Murray part where he referenced this, I think you need to know what he's talking about.
I thought Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War. Now, he didn't kill the most people.
Wait. Churchill was the chief villain of World War II. I feel like they're the chief villain? The chief villain. What about Hitler, maybe?
I thought Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War. Now, he didn't kill the most people. He didn't commit the most atrocities. But I believe, and I think when you really get into it and tell the story right and don't leave anything out, you see that he was primarily responsible for that war becoming what it did, becoming something other than an invasion of Poland. Germany, look, they put themselves into a position, and Adolf Hitler is chiefly responsible for this, but his whole regime is responsible for it, that when they went into the East in 1941, they launched a war where they were completely unprepared to deal with the millions and millions of prisoners of war, of local political prisoners and so forth, that they were going to have to handle. They went in with no plan for that. And they just threw these people into camps, and millions of people ended up dead there. You have like letters as early as July, August 1941 from commandants.
I've never seen hands. I'm going to address what he's saying, which is absurd in a second, but his hands are ginormous and do really interesting things too.
These makeshift camps that they're setting up for these millions of people who are surrendering, or people they're rounding up. And so it's 2 months after, a month or two after.
I mean, that is a hand. Like when God made a hand, he made a hand there. Okay. So he's actually acting like here, at least if I can believe my ears, which people like this talk in really kind of vague terms where they won't just say what they mean. But he's acting like the death camps concentration camps and mass killing operations were a product of, shoot, we didn't know what to do with the people. Listen further.
People they're rounding up. And so it's 2 months after, a month or two after Barbarossa was launched. And they're writing back to the high command in Berlin saying, we can't feed these people. We don't have the food to feed these people. And one of them actually says, rather than wait for them all to slowly starve this winter, wouldn't it be more humane to just finish them off quickly now?
More humane. We didn't know what to do with the people. Obviously, historically, he's doing some crazy revisionist history. And we've spent more time in the past fact-checking this, so I'm just kind of give you some context of how crazy the links are. The reason this is important is if you bring someone, which Rogan did, like Derek Cooper on the show, you don't have to do this, but any responsible adult would. You'd prep to make sure that you can explain to people thoughtfully as he's talking or push back why some of the stuff he's saying is disconnected from the facts of World War II. But Rogan's never prepared for that. He just kind of, interested. Wow, that's a crazy story. And it's horrified real historians. Obviously. Tucker was convinced, though.
About it. So people want to tell me Churchill's an incredible guy. Really? Well, why didn't he save Western civilization? He didn't even save Poland.
He did.
What did he
He did save Western civilization.
How?
He defeated the Nazis.
But, I know he helped defeat the Nazis.
Well, the Nazis
There is like some serious vibration going on in Tucker's head. I know.
But, I know he helped defeat the Nazis,
Well, the Nazis
with his friend Stalin.
The Nazis wanted the whole world to be speaking in German.
I'm not defending the Nazis. I'm just saying, where is Western civilization? What did he preserve? Where is it? I don't know where it is.
Churchill died the year before I was born. Oh, the same year, actually.
He died in 63, I think.
65.
65.
I think about a month before I was born. It was a natural succession. But
but the question is, like, where's the victory? I don't understand. Like, everyone wants to yell at you for not loving Churchill. Okay,
well, hang on,
show me the victory.
Well, yeah, but
it's a theoretical victory. He beat Hitler. Great. I'm totally for beating Hitler.
Yeah,
I'm totally for beating Hitler.
You can't say 80 years on that Churchill didn't win the war, because look at what's happened since.
But the war is not just like an engagement in Poland or even in downtown Berlin. The war is the effort to save Western civilization.
It's twisted and demented. This is not about Churchill. I mean, he's a piece of a much broader picture, but he's saying what was the win in winning? Which winning is the correct term, but I've always been a little uncomfortable with whenever something of that devastation being like, wee, but it was a victory against this fascist, mass murderous regime that didn't respect individual rights whatsoever, had such bigoted intentions that it operationally, at a rate and precision, took the lives of people completely unjustifiably, obviously. And we stopped that from being able to continue its expansionist goals and continue its mass killing. And you don't see what we preserved? You don't think it's, I could come back to this, but sorry, I know we're taking a long time to get to the actual clip here, but that is, it's this be a contrarian on everything, I guess, or more disturbing ideological alignment there. But let me pull up now the Rogan clip, and that was Daryl Cooper's whole thing, and then Tucker, it comes from such a place of, it's such a spoiled take. What did we preserve? A century of rights, and by the way, global stability, and human lives that would not be there otherwise, despite what was not able to be prevented. It's disturbing. Here's, with that context in mind, Douglas Murray.
In the last couple of years, and it's largely to do with people who have appointed themselves experts who are not experts.
You mean like Ian? I don't think he appoints himself an expert in anything.
Who's that other dude who thinks he's an expert on Churchill?
Oh, Daryl Cooper does not think he's an expert.
In fact, I think it's everybody else is always calling him an expert, and he's like, I'm just a history
Have you
nerd."
ever absorbed any of his material? Have you ever consumed any of his podcasts or anything like that?
I tried.
Yeah?
It's pretty hard to listen to somebody who says, I don't know what I'm talking about, but now I'm going to talk. Or I don't know about this. Or I'm not capable of debating this historian, but I'm going to just tell you what I think.
Yeah, but that's not
I think that's a
exactly
little
that's
bit
not
out of
exactly what
context.
Daryl was saying. I mean, Daryl's point of view, however you feel about this, what Daryl is saying is he doesn't really like doing debates. He likes to do long format stuff where he can really explain his
But there's-
position.
Where no one will push back. Right. Of course. Yes. That's really interesting. And before going further, it's such an important point to bring up about it's hard to trust people who speak like an expert, but then go, I don't know, don't trust me, right? Rogan does that a lot. He'll authoritatively say something conspiratorial and go, but then when he gets in trouble, he posts a video saying, listen, I'm just an idiot. People know that. No, they don't. The amount of times I talk to someone, I'm saying, where'd you hear that? And we track it down and it was Rogan. Ugh.
If you throw a lot of shit out there, there's some point at which I'm just raising questions is not a valid thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're not raising questions. You're not asking questions. You're telling people something.
Do you think Daryl's doing that?
I think there's a whole bunch of guys doing that.
I think
Yeah. Yes. Now, again, there was a lot more brought up, but that little piece is two of the key parts. Be skeptical of somebody. I gotta get my hands to look as big as Daryl's. God, let's see. You gotta be skeptical of people who pretend to be experts, but then when they get in trouble, go, I'm just a guy talking. I'm just a guy talking. I'm just a guy talking about how, hey, maybe Hitler wasn't so bad. I'm just a guy talking. I'm just hanging out with my brothers. We're just smoking cigars. You can't always do this. What, you want me to debate somebody? You want me to be challenged on something by an actual historian? I'm not a historian. I can't do that. But also, the win was not a win against Nazis, right? And that I'm saying authoritatively, but I don't know a thing, right? That you should be skeptical of. And then the whole model, which is Tucker's whole thing of, I'm asking questions. Is it wrong to ask a question? If I say, how are you? Is that also wrong? Where do you draw the line? What are you going to throw me into the El Salvadoran camp with people who've been wrongly accused of things? Are you going to throw me there and I'm going to run away just because I ask, how are you? Is that how it's going? If I say, how are you? And the other person doesn't answer with an answer, but answers with a reciprocal, how are you, which is a bastardization of the English language. Is that wrong? Or is it just wrong if they answer me? Because then the question wasn't really a question if it's just a figure of speech. Is it wrong to ask my wife if she's happy with me? I would never ask that because she would obviously know, but is it wrong to ask that? That model where it's always just, is it the case that Democrats want to lock you in the closet and not give you any food until you die, is how people give themselves plausible deniability. If it seems like someone's constantly trying to give themselves plausible deniability, you kind of have to wonder why. Why are they always covering their bases? Why are they always making sure if you confronted them, hey, Tucker, you said this thing about World War II, and then they don't want to have to actually defend that, like how Daryl Cooper doesn't want to actually defend or debate a historian who could, better than I could, quickly refute his individual specific points. It's why is that how you operate? Well, he's not going to be able to defend it, so he just falls back on, no, I didn't say that. I asked it. I didn't say I asked it. I asked what was the victory of World War II. I didn't say there wasn't a victory. It's really irritating. And watching all of this, it makes me feel this way.
Because if you tell the truth, what should happen as a consequence of the truth makes itself manifest in the world. And that's the best possible outcome. But it's also the most adventurous thing that you can do, the most exciting thing you can do, hands down. There's nothing that compares to it. That pathway of maximal responsibility, voluntary.
People in their hands today. I don't know what this. Sorry to our podcast listeners. He's doing sort of his little fingies are acting up.
Responsibility and truth. And I understand that deeply at a religious level. I understand that that's the symbolic world on which our...
All right. I really, really appreciate when people express emotion. I do. I really do. Y'all know that. Jordan Peterson is always crying on Piers Morgan. I don't know I'm pretty sure if I searched up right now, Piers Morgan, Jordan Peterson, Piers Morgan, Jordan Peterson, we would see what we would find is the top two ones you can show Jaden are sort of tearful, but that's fine. That's fine. It is a theme though. I don't know. I did find this statement really interesting though.
Because if you tell the truth, what should happen as a consequence of the truth makes itself manifest in the world.
What should happen as a consequence of the truth will make itself manifest in the world. You know what? What's funny? The reason. So obviously, I'm saying I feel sad was the point about that. But then after I thought, okay, I feel sad. That's kind of a funny reference. Jordan Peterson was sad. I'm sad that people are questioning what to do like this. But okay. But then he said that statement. It's kind of an interesting, a little bit vague, kind of, It reminded me of this, one of those kind of flowery words, doing words things.
Dr. Ben Witherington said, text without context is a pretext for whatever you want it to mean. So if you...
Yeah, true. And all of those are fine. They really are fine. They're a little bit kind of, wait, what are you saying? But fine. It's interesting. I love those interesting, the way it hits the ear is fascinating, right? But the reason I bring this up is because every single time that Harris would make such a statement, they would go ballistic. Oh, she's drunk. What is she saying?
Because when we think about the strength of our democracy, you know, I think that there's a duality to the nature of democracy. When it's intact, oh, it's so strong in terms of what it does to uphold and protect individual rights and freedoms. So strong in its nature. And it is very fragile. It will only be as strong as our willingness to fight for it.
And the right-wing response was, what is she even saying? Right? Listen, we all sometimes choose linguistically unique ways to express ourselves. And I think that's fine. Even if it's the text without context is the pretext for whatever you want it to mean. That actually is a profound point. But the right-wingers, they're fine when they use language in that way, but not when Kamala did it. And then one other point while we're talking about Rogan, Sam Harris just recently made a very similar point to what Cooper brought up. Cooper? Was it? Douglas Cooper? Yeah.
Directly.
No, it was Daryl Cooper. Douglas Murray. Douglas Murray, sorry.
Harmful. Our society is as politically shattered as it is in part because of how Joe has interacted with information. Again, I don't think this is, I think a lot of this is inadvertent, or maybe all of it's inadvertent, but it is also avoidable, right? He could actually take the responsibility that really is his to take at this point to get his facts straight and have someone other than Jamie there riding shotgun with him.
Totally. I mean, it's a matter of, do you feel a responsibility because of the audience that you have? But a lot of people, that's tough. But if you just frame yourself as, the phrase that someone used recently was, I just shoot the shit. I just kind of chat with my bros. Then you never have to do the hard work of making sure you're delivering the truth to people. And it can just be, we were just talking. I don't know. They said something else. But people who professionally mislead people then can get onto the airwaves of this mass podcast and mislead people. Share your thoughts in the comments. I appreciate all of you. And that is the end of this video.